How much time do you spend consuming versus how much time do you spend creating? This is something that I've been thinking a lot about recently, and I've noticed in periods in my life where I am consuming a lot. So maybe I'm learning something, maybe I'm like gathering information, or I'm reading, I'm researching, I'm kind of getting ready, right? You probably know the feeling when you're, whether it be a new business venture you're looking to start or a new project, and you kind of go into this like research mode, or even just something as simple as like social media and TV, right? That like constant consumption of looking at other people's content, but then never ever posting any of your own content. And this is where I think content in itself and posting content, whatever you might think, a lot of people don't like the idea of posting content on social media. This isn't to say that you should or shouldn't be posting content at all, but there is definitely something to be said for that balance between those two things, right? So if you are somebody who consumes content in any form, social media, TV, whatever it is, I think it's so important to have that then balanced out with moments of creation, because I've noticed, certainly for me in my life, when I've gone too far, or I've become a bit unbalanced, right? Whether I'm over consuming or over creating. When I'm over consuming, I usually know, because I get into a state of kind of almost like paralysis, and I can start feeling like a lot of anxiety almost building up inside me, right? Because you're exposed, and that's the thing with consumption, is your mind is kind of becoming saturated. It's like weighing down. It's like a sponge. Like all this information is going into it, and you're not wringing it out. When you create something, it's almost like wringing out that sponge. And that's why I think, for me, sometimes like creating content can actually feel quite cathartic. It can feel quite nice, because it's like an expression. You're kind of letting all of that stuff that you've consumed internally, you're letting it go. You're expressing it in whatever way, shape, or form it chooses to express itself in, right? That's ultimately what creation allows, whether it's something physical, whether you're writing something, whether you're talking, whatever you're doing, you're kind of expressing things that you have taken in and internalized in your own way. And that's incredible. Like, that's the amazing thing about creation and expression. There's no right or wrong way to express. Everyone has their own unique expressions that come from their own unique interpretations of the things that they consume. But I think, again, when we overconsume, that's when it can start to feel very heavy and very kind of anxiety inducing. But at the same time, I think we can overcreate, and I've certainly found myself in periods where I'm like, oh God, I haven't created something in ages. And then I fall into this like hole of like forcing myself to create. And, that's another thing that I've noticed with all of this, with this kind of, I guess, any area of life, right? Whenever we try to balance anything in life, it's always this: whenever I approach something, I've noticed for myself from like a place of force, it just doesn't end well, right? Whereas if I can approach it from more of a state of flow, it's much easier, I think, to find a balance. Because, when people talk about balance, it's like work-life balance, right? It's such a BS phrase, because it's not, I don't think there is like a 50-50 split. And I don't think that's the idea. It's not like a pair of scales where you want to get the two perfectly balanced. I think in reality, we go through seasons, we go through periods in our life. And I think when you can be kind of led from a state of your inner curiosity and joy, and just kind of following what comes naturally to you, you usually can't go far wrong from that. It's like people say about listening to your gut, listening to your intuition. Like, your body knows what it wants, your body knows what it needs in that moment. But when we start to ignore the signs that our body's telling us, that's when kind of trouble often arises. And yeah, I mean, I just think it's been such a kind of powerful insight to be able to see and distinguish those two things, and to recognize, whether you resonate this, I don't know if this is resonating, but having that kind of feeling of anxiety, or paralysis, like, I'm just seeing too many things. There's all these ideas coming in. I feel like overwhelmed, that's kind of what this state of overconsumption can create, this feeling of overwhelm. And then I can very easily associate that, and I think to myself, hang on, have I created something recently? And very often, if I then go to create something, it's so freeing. But then, again, at the same time, if I'm forcing myself to create, I end up feeling stuck, and you feel like burnt out and exhausted and tired. And sometimes you need to consume for inspiration to allow that to come back in, whether that be reading a book or watching a movie or even going out in nature, right? Consuming nature, consuming the world, right? Just looking around you and seeing what's around. It's kind of just switching between those states, I think, and noticing when you start to feel a certain way. You can probably, and this has certainly been the case with me, I can usually attribute it to the fact that, okay, I've gone too far one way here and not the other. I need to make something, or I need to go away, stop trying to make things, and go and consume, go and just take in the world, go and read a book, go and listen to some music, go and watch a movie, whatever it is. And having those balance, and this isn't something as well where it's even necessarily, I don't believe, you don't have to even be in a creative job. You don't have to even be a creative. We're all consuming and creating in different forms, right? In different ways, shapes, or forms. Like, creation is just about expression, right? You're just expressing yourself. Maybe you're just talking to someone. Creation, expression could be the form of like just talking to a loved one. Whereas again, consumption is that very kind of internal, I'm just taking in all this information, I'm reading all this information. And that's why I think relationships are so important, right? Because it allows you to be expressed, to have somebody to share with and to express yourself to. Because if we don't have that, again, I think we end up in these places where it can feel very dark and overwhelming and just heavy, because you that stuff has to be let go somewhere. It has to be expressed in some way, shape, or form. Anyway, I'd love to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments on your thoughts on like consumption versus creating. It's something that I've always found like really, really fascinating, and I've always thought like there's never quite been a balance. But I think when you start to just listen to yourself, it's something where you start to get a sense of, okay, I need to do more of this, or maybe I need to do more of that in that moment. There's no perfect balance to any of this stuff. It's just listening to yourself and asking, like, what do I need in this moment? What am I feeling like I'm maybe overcommitting to at this moment, and then doing whatever it is you need to do. Anyway, I really hope that's helped. Love to hear your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next video.